I'm Donna Hodson, and today I'm going to show you some spattering techniques. The brushes that I use, this is the one that I like to use. It's a low Cornell size 10 fabric dye brush, and I have used toothbrushes in the past, but they don't work very well. This is the one that an older one that I've been using. It's getting about worn out, but I will load this brush. And this, I'm just going to show you the way I hold the brush and the simple spattering technique. So I'm going to load this brush, and I put a little bit of water on my palette, just so I can, just a drop or two, just so that I can thin it if I need to, because sometimes we get it too thin, sometimes it's a little bit not thin enough, we have to add more paint. But instead of having to dip into my brush basin, I'll just put a few drops of water on my palette. Now, I hold my brush, I take it in my hand like this, where my finger is right here, and then I'll turn it over, hold it in a vertical position like this, and then I will stroke my fingers across the end of the bristle. So I'm holding it down, and this will direct the spatters where I want them to go. So if you can see this spattering I'm doing here. So this is my basic technique, and then I will reload whenever I need to. When I'm doing this on a project, if you will place one coat of varnish over it first before you spatter, then you can clean it off more easily. Or test it on a piece of paper or something off to your side or your palette before you spatter, to be sure that your spatters are what you want to use. So spattering is used by a lot of artists for a lot of different techniques. And one that we use quite a bit is landscape artists use it. And in this case, I have painted a small beginning of a scene. This is just a very rough one. I'm going to put a piece of some paper toweling under this just to keep from getting paint everywhere. But this is I've started a path. And so to make it look like it has rocks and pebbles on the path, you can use either, in this case it would be burnt umber, maybe some burnt sienna. I'm kind of mixing the two of these together. And I'm going to kind of cover where I don't want the spatters to go. And then you can just spatter over this path. And you can direct them where you want to go, and it'll kind of give it the impression that you have some little pebbles. Let's see if you can see those like that. So another thing, if you want them to become little fatter pebbles, then go ahead and kind of pat them. Maybe if your finger's a little damp, and this will make some of them change sizes, change values, and it will make it look more realistic. So this is one way that a lot of your landscape artists use it. Some of them use spattering to add foliage to trees. I have never been successful doing that. I keep thinking it would be a nice technique to do, especially using watercolor techniques. So this is another example of spattering. So many of you like to put snow on your ornaments or on your background, so I've just drawn a little outline of a snowman here. And whenever I do a snow scene, snowflakes can have value just like anything else. So I like to start off with, this is a deep midnight blue, so I'm mixing deep midnight blue plus white into my brush, and I'm working it in thin. So my first layer would not be a very light snowing. It would be a darker one. So I would just spatter, and I would also cover the face of my snowman while I'm doing this. I just hold it over. So even though this is a very dark background, you can see where the snow is showing up. Then I would come back and add more white to make a lighter blue. And then I would go ahead and spatter again, and then these will become brighter. And then at the very end, I'll just wipe my brush this time instead of cleaning it. Then you would come in with pure white. Get a little bit more water in that mix. Then you would come in with just pure white, and this would give you a highlight. So that way it would look more like you have snow in the distance. So this is probably the #1 technique people use to spatter, at least the decorative artists do. Or I like to add texture to my backgrounds. And in this case, I have just a piece of poster board that has been painted. And I think this is cardstock, but it doesn't really matter. So if I wanted to add more of a look of texture, I've already added like 2 different colors in this, and I don't remember what this was because I found this in my scrap heap. So in this case, I'm going to use some light buttermilk. I can find my light buttermilk. Here it is. I'm going to use some light buttermilk, and this would be maybe plus a little bit of raw sienna, maybe just to make it not quite so light. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of spatter over this. This just gives it a lighter look. It's a little bit lighter value than the value of the background. And then I will come in with more raw sienna, a darker value than I have, and go ahead and come over again. Sometimes I will put more of this on the outer edges, less in the middle. But this will also give you the look of texture on your backgrounds. So I do this a lot. It kind of helps fill in and creates a little more interest in your background without overpowering your subject matter that you're doing. So this is just a little piece of green cardstock, and I have I've used some I don't remember what the dark was on this piece. These are some of my scraps, but I'm going to pick up some plantation pine and some avocado. I think avocado was the light that I used in this. I may have to even come with a lighter green. Probably maybe a Hauser light. And I'm going to moisten part of this background with clean water. Just take a inner brush, and I'm just going to brush the top of this with clean water. And then I'm going to come in here with and spatter some green over it. Now the water will help this to diffuse. So you can just let it dry like this, and when it dries, it will, see if I can get it so it doesn't have a sheen on it, but it will help these colors diffuse into the background, which will soften them down a little bit. And if it doesn't soften it enough, you can always come in and just take a little paper towel and just pat them dry like this, and this will kind of smash them. If you're doing it over the dry part of the paper, then you would come in here and go ahead and you do your spattering. And then again, if you wanted to make them appear, some of them flatten out, then you just come in and lightly pat with a paper towel, and this will just kind of make the sizes a little bit different and make it a little bit more interesting. It doesn't diffuse as much on this one as it does on this one if you pre-moisten your area first. So these are some of the basic ways I use them. I have one more I want to show you before I finish. I have begun to paint a pear. I've done the shading on the pear, and I like to add speckles to my fruit, but I don't want to speckle my entire surface where I have painted the rest of my design. So I'll use a piece of tracing paper or plain paper, and I'll cut out a stencil of my pear or whatever I'm working on. And I try not to get this where I'm going to be placing a highlight. And in this case, my light source is coming from here, so my highlight's going to be here and right in here. So when I'm spattering this, I will go ahead and cover those with my finger, just so I don't have a lot of, have to go back and get rid of any of the colors. So in this case, I'm using raw sienna. Sometimes I use a mixture of raw sienna plus a green, which I'll go ahead and mix that in because it kind of makes a different different color. It's kind of a dirty green, but it's more natural of what you would see on a piece of fruit. And then I'll cover where I don't want the spatter to go, and then you can just kind of spatter over your fruit. And let's say I get it, I'm going to go ahead and spatter over mine. If you get it in your highlight area, just come in with a brush and kind of wipe it out or pat it down a little bit just to clean out those areas so that when you add your highlight you don't have to go over and have a milky looking speckle. So that's basically the way I use spatters, and I hope that maybe these few techniques have given you some ideas to try in your own work. So that's all I have for today, and I thank you for watching.